This is an historic moment for the show. Today marks the first time I talk to two friends at the same time. And that's pretty cool. It's something to celebrate. I am really happy about this episode. Me, Andrew Jones, Rory Connell, we go back about over 20 years now as friends. They go back even further. You add that all up, that's a lot of friend years. I love it. We had a really fun time doing this show. It went so long that we're actually splitting it into 2 episodes. Just like a worm that we cut and then both parts become their own worm and they grow down into the rich, fertile soil to bequeath your ears with the loving sounds and vibrations of such rich stories. It's very soylent. I'm very happy and proud of it. If you don't know who the band Raccoon is, you are going to learn everything you ever wanted to know about them, and then some. We're taking a really deep dive into this world. So I just want you to tuck your chin, pull in your belly, and take the dive with us. Head first into the world that is Raccoon. We're going to be listening some awesome Raccoon songs this show and talking about them. I'm just so happy for people that weren't around during this period of time, late 90s, early 2000s, to feel like they're connected in some way to this. And for me, it was such a magical and special time in my life that it's just so nice to revisit and do it with the people that were there. So here we go. Strap in, buckle up, hold tight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Andrew Jones and Rory Connell. Hello, look at us. Here we are. We're all here. That was kind of not a great fade out. I'm going to fade it back in to give it a proper fade out. There we go. I am here with two of my oldest buddies.
Oh, man.
Not like oldest, you guys are old, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time.
We have. We've known each other quite a long time.
We're like your second group of buddies, right? Like you have your original Zinkel, Frank McElroy buddies.
Yes.
Dimitri. And then, we're like the second growth.
Second wave.
It's a second wave. Yeah. It's like you had... Ramones, Clash, Misfits, and then you start doing some Black Flag and throw that Descendants in the mix.
Yeah, we're definitely Black Flag.
What's that?
We're definitely Black Flag.
Yeah, good Black Flag. Before Rollins, before Rollins entered the game. So who do I have here? Who is this? Who are you guys?
Is this how you start your interviews with your friends? Who are you?
It's a lot of accusations. There's a lot of accusations in this. And a little bit of paranoia.
Well, that's Andrew Jones.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. I met
Yeah.
Bradford first in my basement in Westchester.
Oh,
And it was great. It's just been all good stuff ever since. Yeah, I'm a music guy. I'm a law guy. Went to law school. I teach people the law. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
You
Andrew.
lay down the law
I lay down the law when necessary.
and let it take a nap for a little nap time.
I lay it down and I swaddle it.
Yeah, you got to swallow the law. Sometimes the law doesn't play very nice and you have to be sweet to it.
Gets agitated and it just needs to
mhm.
feel safe.
You got to
Treat
give
it
it
like a little burrito,
yeah, a little burrito. Give it very
tight
mild
wrap.
salsa. Extra mild.
It's just the skin of the tomato.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
all the babies want.
that's it. Yep.
Gross. That's the worst part of the tomato.
None of that sweet pulp.
The other guy's Rory.
Yeah,
The other guy who's here.
I'm Rory Connell. I took the LSATs, but I did not go to law school. I went to grad school. I do music stuff, including having played guitar in the band Raccoon and in other bands. And I write disaster plans for a living now, which is a funny outcome. Modern profession.
It's that's interesting too right now because there's obviously has been some disasters
hmm
recently. Has that should I have bought in stock in your company?
You should have bought in stock in my company.
Jeez. If I had gone back to 2019 for Christmas, I would have given myself a few stocks. One would have been Rory's company, another would have been Zoom. And
I don't think we're publicly traded. Actually, I have to check that.
I could have traded it on the black market and gotten something off of that.
Dark web.
Yeah. Get some
Is
Bitcoin.
the dark web? Is dark web and deep web the same thing? Do you know?
I don't know if I've heard of the deep web.
Yeah. What's in the deep web is probably like really, really rare Garbage Pail Kids movie information.
Deep web is like all of the like right wing conspiracy stuff kind of exists on the deep web. And dark web is like where you can purchase like tattoos from dead people.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
dark web is like off the record. So it sounds
Yeah.
like deep web is the image boards, your 4chans, your
8chans.
8kun. It's now 8kun.
8kun. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is different than like it's confusing because there's also the deep state.
There is the
Mhm.
deep state, which they talk about a lot on those image boards.
Like
Those-
8kun.
What about the dark state? What's that?
It sounds like a cool movie that probably Tommy Lee Jones would have been in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1998. Tommy Lee Jones.
Maybe like Steven Seagal, a little follow up to Under Siege.
Yeah.
A little Steven Seagal like as the hero before he puffed up a little.
Yeah. The Steven Seagal's a true lunatic. His post-movie life is completely insane. He like advertises himself as a security expert and he's a total psychopath.
He's nutty.
Yeah, he's terrible.
Do you think he has like a wild collection? Like, does Steven Seagal collect something that's disturbing, like Nazi memorabilia, or?
I bet he just
Oh.
collects swords. That guy's
Ugh.
there's a very thin veneer with that
Yeah.
guy. Exactly what you think he would be.
Just like the silkiest kimonos possible. He just has
Yeah, his
drawers of them.
faux Asian shtick.
Deep fetish.
I'm not. I'm coming off as very anti Steven Seagal, and that's because I am. I think he sucks.
Just want to set the record straight.
If
Yeah.
you know, if we just talk about him this whole episode, it'll actually be time well spent.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, good time well spent with Seagal.
If we
Actually,
have a segue, I've got a good segue.
yes. You mean the ones you ride around on the street for like tours?
Not those. Those
Okay.
are cool.
Those
But
are-
in transition, if we
Yes,
ever
yeah.
need to get out of something we've gone too deep into, like Steven Seagal, I can tell you about the amazing name I saw on a gravestone when I was out on a walk today, and it was near a cemetery, so we walked through the cemetery a little bit. You want to hear this name?
Yes.
Yeah.
The name is Walter G. Eels. And it made me so happy.
So let's think about Walter Eels. Walter Eels isn't bad. Walt Eels is like
He makes
a
it.
disgusting name. Walter G. Eels is perfect.
Oh,
You're dealt that hand where your last name is Eels.
Yeah.
Like, Walter G. Eels is about as good as it gets.
yeah. Walt Eels.
Walt Eels.
Gosh, I wonder, did he wonder how he died? Do you think if it had something to do with eels, we're just
bitter irony.
poof. Yeah.
Especially if they weren't electric eels.
Yeah.
Just common eels.
Or
He
if it
like
was
slipped on an eel in an aquarium that wasn't electric.
killed him. And
Oh yeah.
he's bummed because it's like it wasn't even eels. It was so close, but it wasn't eels.
Land eels.
You immediately would think that he was killed by electric eels. Okay, well, that's a good way to get out of anything we go down too far. That's our safe word then, Walter Eels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the safe word. So yeah, I knew you guys. I really wanted to focus this. This is also, I want to say, the first episode in the show that has 3 people. So far, it's just been me and another person. So now we're really upping the ante here. There's a lot more factors at play. You get 3 of us.
Okay.
It's chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I just want to kind of preface that it can get kind of Looney Tunes here if we want, which is fun.
But you want us to get Looney Tunes?
Maybe a mixture of a little Tom and Jerry and between Porky Pig and Daffy Duck. I think that's probably that middle ground there. Daffy's just absolutely he's lost it, his brain's gone, but Porky Pig is just stumbling through life.
There aren't many of those merry melodies that have a third in them. They're just it's about the relationship of 2 characters.
Right.
There's rarely they're checking in on Marty the Martian or whatever it is.
That's interesting. Yeah, they never really meet.
Marvin, yeah.
They don't really Marty, because we're talking about Marty
Zinkle.
We're just going right into that. They don't really ever get into the worlds, the universes in that. The Merry Melodies don't really connect very much.
No.
Tom and Jerry and Wile E. Coyote never met, as far as I know. Maybe in Space Jam.
I think Tom and Jerry are a different franchise, though.
Oh, shoot.
I think they're. Yeah, I don't think they're under the
Merry Melodies.
That whole Merry Melodies universe.
Porky and Daffy and Elmer. Okay, all right, that's interesting.
They're not Hanna-Barbera, but they're. I think they're their own thing, like Metro Goldwyn, maybe.
When I was a kid, this is fascinating, but I'm going to tell you about when I was a kid. I hated Tom. I always wanted Jerry, or no, the opposite. I hated Jerry. You're supposed to root for Jerry, but I hated Jerry, and I was rooting for Tom because I felt like Jerry was always just destroying him, and Tom, he's just doing what he's supposed to do. He's just a cat.
Yeah,
programmed that way.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't
just
realize until later I was rooting for the wrong one.
But it's instinct. The cat had instincts that we were all trying to suppress.
Yeah, let Tom be a cat.
Yeah, let him do what his God-given instinct is doing. I really am. I brought you both here today to talk to you about something very important, and it's something that hasn't been talked about very much, and it's a little band called Raccoon.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
You remember that? Do you?
Yeah.
Remember? If you didn't remember it, I'd be really concerned.
Yeah. Which Raccoon operated from 1999 to 2003 or 4, something like that. Seems like if we're just putting it in where time exists.
Yeah, probably 2003.
That's the Raccoon. Yeah. That's the Raccoon verse. We'll refer to
Raccoon. Yeah.
I that takes that question
Longer.
off.
It's as you'll see, it kind of one band morphed into another. So I think Raccoon existed a little earlier than that. The even the name itself would have probably been like 97 or 98.
Well,
Really?
so
Okay.
this I also want to just mention because we're kind of like launching into this thing right now where we've taken care of a little talk about Seagal a little bit, some little fluff here and there. But initially, when I got in touch with you guys to do the show, like I was telling you before we started this, is that I asked you both to do this. And I was kind of like, I don't know what we're going to talk about to start. We can just go into something. And then, literally an hour or two later, I get a Facebook message from somebody that wants Raccoon music. They're getting in touch with me through a friend of ours, mutual friend, Richard Santos. Really great guy.
Yeah,
And
Richard Best.
and
Awesome.
yeah,
Legend.
yeah, total legend. I actually should get him on some point for.
Should.
We should do that. It's a growing list now for the show, but this gentleman got in touch with me, and it literally was like, okay, you're asking me about Raccoon music. I just talked to Rory and Andrew. This is a cosmic yes. We have to talk about Raccoon, and it's also something that I feel like really needs documenting as far as what this band was, and just the era of music, And for me, it's like it was such a magnificent time in my life to be a part of this with you guys and meeting you all in your whole world. It was awesome. So it's really exciting. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from is like, being involved, but also a huge fan, and then just wanting to let other people like know the story, I mean, it's not like we're doing a behind the music of one deal, or it's not like that, but just to know like, hey, where did this start? Where's it from? And any like fun tidbits and stuff that
Yeah,
that
do you want me to start? Do you want me to like give a little deep background?
Yeah, and I kind of want to like let you guys take the reins. I don't want to be super direct in like directive as far as what I'm asking of, but just kind of like just general things that I feel like are of interest as far as where are you from and how did this all start. So I'd love to hear from.
Yeah. Well, I think probably like if there is any interest, it probably derives at least in part from Dr. Dog, like the later very successful band with Toby and Scott. So Toby Leaman and Scott McMicken, our buddies who were in Raccoon with us. Um, so like Raccoon was kind of a precursor to Dr. Dog, coexisted for a little while. Um, and that would, I can't imagine too many people are just like dying to hear about Raccoon independent of that. Like they hate Dr. Dog, but they really want to know about Raccoon. That just doesn't seem to make too much sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, maybe. I'll be open to whatever. But so that's kind of like where it ended up. But the very beginnings, so Rory was a grade ahead of me in school, and then I was a grade ahead of Toby and Scott. So I became buddies with Rory and Doug O'Donnell, who was also a guitar player in Dr. Dog, in the early days of Dr. Dog, the original guitar player. So I was buddies with them, and then they graduated.
Where was this?
Oh yeah, this is in West Grove, Pennsylvania. The high school is called Avon Grove, southeastern PA, right near the Delaware state line. Just kind of out in the country, not too far out there, but fairly rural when we were growing up there.
Who was the mascot of the high school?
It was the Red Devils. So it's the Avon Grove Red Devils. There was some controversy. Stefana Riley's mom tried to get the mascot changed because she was a Christian, didn't like the devil imagery.
And it was the most devilish of the devils. It's the red devil.
I know, a red devil.
It's like the default devil.
Yeah, he was kind of a playful.
It's just the regular devils.
Yeah, so I mean, Bradford's familiar with a sun devil. Out in Arizona, they have sun devils, but in southeastern PA, we just had a red devil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Red devils.
And then I'm from, the area close to where the Jersey Devil was.
That's true. There's
Oh,
all
God.
kinds of
A lot of devils everywhere.
or the red devils. So yeah, that was our high school, and it was a funny little place. We didn't have a football team, so it seemed like social dynamics were a little bit weird there. There were a bunch of punk rockers, there were a bunch of rednecks, and that was kind of like, it wasn't so much like the jocks versus the nerds or the skaters or anything. It was more like the rednecks and the punks. That was the conflict.
Where the rednecks were the Red Devils.
They
Yeah.
they
And
were pretty
also, if there's no football team, what's the mascot doing? It's just running about like destroying things.
I was on the
Just hopping on shoulders.
team, so the academic competition team was pretty hot stuff.
There we go.
But we never had the mask. I don't think there actually was a mascot. It was just the emblem.
Yes.
Nobody dressed as the Red Devil, as far as I know. Rory, did anybody ever dress up as the Red Devil?
It's a missed opportunity, and there are many missed opportunities at that high school.
Why not?
But yeah,
They
never happened.
There was a yearly donkey basketball game where
Oh
the
God.
players would ride on donkeys and play basketball. Which I don't think you can do that anymore, but it's pretty amazing now that I think back.
Donkey basketball is like the funniest insult to someone. Just call them donkey basketball.
Yeah, so we had donkey basketball. But yeah, so what I was saying is I was kind of in between grades. Rory and Doug and my brother and some other buddies of ours graduated. They went to college. I was still in high school, and I'd kind of like lost the people I hung out with the most. And that was when I really started hanging out with Toby and Scott all the time. And they're super great dudes, very cool people, fun to hang out with. And they had a band called Baseball. And Baseball was awesome. Like
So good.
I saw them play, I was completely blown away. Like, these guys rule. They sounded a little bit like Sunny Day Real Estate. They were kind of like heavy, like maybe like like early Smashing Pumpkins-y, like heavy guitar rock. And I just thought Scott was like the best guitar player I'd ever seen in my life. And he kind of is.
Yeah,
But I mean,
agreed.
not at I'm sure like the high school version of Scott was not fully formed, but he could still rip it pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty great. So yeah, I just thought like this is amazing. And I didn't play music at the time. Toby gave me bass lessons. So that was my first musical instrument, was learning to play the bass from Toby. And then my college roommate, when I went to college, Jamie, he had a guitar in our dorm room, and that's when I learned how to play guitar. But starting off, I just was at Toby's house all the time playing his bass, and so that's how I started playing music. And Rory and I had sort of played some music together, but in like a noise. Like Rory could play guitar, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like banging on a bass with like two strings on it, doing my best. That project was called Evan Bando.
Evan Bando, yeah.
Oh, was that a play off of Evan Dando?
But it was
Sure.
Evan
Yeah.
Evan Bando's just a man, but
Which he should be Evan Mando.
he should be.
And then a band. These are all like pretty deep repressed memories for me, Andrew. So I'm glad you're taking the lead on this.
And Rory, he can tell you about his history, but he made like cool home recording, like bedroom recording stuff, some like noisy stuff, some songwritery stuff, and that stuff was really cool. So what I started hanging out with those guys a bunch, and Rory and Doug were still pretty local. They were going to the University of Delaware. which is really not far from where we grew up. So they were still around a bunch. So we started kind of mixing the groups together, and it was a very fun thing. Everybody immediately was pretty psyched on these newer buddies entering the mix. And then the first music project that we all did together, me, Rory, Toby, and I guess it wasn't Scott, but by that point, Scott had moved to Connecticut. Scott moved to Connecticut for a couple years. So the first thing we did was me, Rory, Toby, and our friend Evan Draper, who later reappears in the Raccoon story. But the four of us did a band called the Paleontologists, and that was really, we were really good at naming our bands in those early days. That was the first iteration of the thing that became Raccoon, and we basically just like we were all listening to the same Pavement records, and we were just like, maybe we could make music that sounds kind of like this. And we I don't think, I'm sure we weren't good, but it felt pretty exciting. It felt like we were doing weird, cool stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, you're also ahead. It sounds like you were ahead of the paleo craze by calling yourself
yeah, I mean,
paleontologist.
It's true.
we were
But there was a lot of just like, your chord can be shaped like this. And I never
Ah,
shaped a chord like that. It was always
and
like this.
and for our listeners at home, Rory is doing a
Yeah,
really
like
claw-like
a claw thing.
chord thing that's just
I had clawish hands anyway, but
yeah,
yeah, it's just a lot of like
breaking out a
put your hand like this
structure.
and move it around. But yeah, because Toby was good about kind of having that framework where he listened to a lot of like, he listened to Fish and Tom Waits and things like that. So I think it was a little more out there than probably like the more straight ahead Beatles type stuff that I liked in that world. But I liked like Pavement and all that stuff, so that made sense. But yeah, like a little noisier and probably like more conventional. I know there were a couple of Paleontologist songs that like carried with us. Does that make sense, Andrew? Like
yeah, they
Seaward Bound carried through, I think.
ended up as Raccoon songs and even got
Yeah.
released on some of the stuff we released.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And yeah, Toby wrote almost all of the songs at that point, and they were just great. He was such a cool songwriter, doing such weird stuff. And I was he's a bass player by trade. He plays bass in Dr. Dog, but he was playing guitar and Rory's playing guitar. I was playing bass, and Evan was playing the drums for the most part in the Paleontologists. And then I think like Evan went to school, and then our buddy Ray drummed with the Paleontologists some, and then Scott moved back. So like there was a year where Toby and I were both at Westchester University, living in dorms, and Scott had not moved back yet. After my second year of college, Toby's first year of college, Scott moved back, and that was like, well, this dude's just like the best. He's such a great musician.
And
Like,
and this
got another guy who's really good at music in this band now.
and this and the years we're at right now is around like what is it, like 98?
Yeah, so I graduated in 96, and then 97 Toby graduated and came to Westchester, so it would have been 98 that Scott would have moved back. And we bought a house, my brother and I, with like the help from my dad. My dad's kind of like a schemer. He was like, we're not going to rent a house. Like, you're going to buy a house, and you and all of your weirdo friends are going to live in it. And he's like, why would you pay rent to somebody? You got all these weirdos who want to live with you. So we bought a house, just like a crappy little 3-bedroom house, and 7 of us moved into it. And that was really where like we could just play music all the time, and it was the best.
Right next to little old Miss Nesbit.
This is
that her name?
yeah.
And so like this huge rocker house right up
Like
against
interchangeable lineups in this rocker house.
Yeah, we
this
had
little old lady.
Jolly Roger flag like that
Oh God.
he put out on the house the day we moved in, which in hindsight is such like a frat bro move, which was everything we hated, but we still, and so like people started calling it the Pirate House, and that definitely caught on. But yeah, the poor Mrs. Nesbit, just these weirdos with their pirate flag and their rock bands moved in next door.
And probably like every night was like a band practice of some
Oh,
type.
There were a lot of bands. Bradford entered into that scene pretty early on, and his band practiced there, Unleash the Bastards. But
yeah, that's.
it was,
It was funny too. We were talking this summer when I visited home how I like kind of just I just showed up there, and I remember
yeah,
Andrew, you remarked how it was like kind of you guys didn't really let people into this group, not because you were elitist or anything, but it was more just you guys had a tight knit.
we were pretty insular. We were not looking for new recruits by any.
Right.
But when you showed up, it was very clear very quickly that you had the vibe we were looking for, and you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think that was very it was good. You know, I was also coming in as like I started as a fan actually of just like for the being in the punk world and you know, meeting I think John Balzerini and Scott
Mhm.
Weaver and you know kind of
The war
the
reenactment guy.
yeah.
Were
Yeah.
did you see them as Civil War reenactment guy, or were they already Unleash the Bastards when
It
you came in?
it was Unleash the Bastards when I came in.
Okay, that was
Um
their predecessor, was Civil War reenactment guy.
Yeah, that's right. Because I missed that. I missed that whole world, and I kind of wish I had gotten to see that. And I'll be
Do you want me
talking.
to tell you the story of where that name came from? Because John is not going to want to talk about it when you talk to
Oh
him.
God, please, yeah, because I'm gonna be talking to him soon, so I'd love to hear that. I would love it.
Unleash the Bastards is a great name. That came from our working at a bookmark factory, and there was a quote on one of them that said, "Unless the bastards something," and I misread it as "Unleash the Bastards." And then John was like, "That's what I'm calling my band."
Oh,
Uh, but before that, his band was called Civil War Reenactment Guy, and that came from a like really notorious house party at our friend Willie and Sarah, their brother and sister. Sarah is Toby's wife, Sarah Leaman.
hmm.
Willie and Sarah's house, their parents were out of town and they had a house party at their house, and all kinds of crazy stuff happened. But the one thing that happened was John had like a thrift store Vietnam era like army coat
I
that
remember
he
that.
had, and the name tag on it was Deadman, Deadman, like Deadman, which is incredible. It's like the best name you could ever have on an army jacket.
Dude.
So he wore that Deadman jacket all the time. It got so filthy and smelly, and he like, uh, put a bunch of spikes in it. It was amazing. So he would wear that jacket all the time. So he had a little too much to drink at this party, and he went up into the bathroom and was vomiting, and I had gone up with him because he was
Oh,
kind of in rough shape. And somebody wanted to use the bathroom, and this guy Joey Simpers, who's a kind of a Newark, Delaware skateboarding and rock and roll music legend. He's a great guy, but he didn't know John at the time. He was walking out of the bathroom. Somebody wanted to come in and use the bathroom, and Joey said, "There's some Civil War reenactment guy puking in there," which is his Vietnam jacket is really. I don't know how he mistook it for Civil War
how
era,
could that look Civil War era? That's insane,
but Civil
dude.
War reenactment guy is just a great a great name. So that's where Civil War reenactment guy came from.
I
Uh,
can't believe I've never heard that. That's amazing.
yeah, that's funny that you've never heard that story. It's a great one. You should tell
Oh.
John that you just know the story now, and he'll probably get mad at
Be
me.
horrified.
That's it's funny. It's been this secret like shame of his that I've never gotten to hear this.
He
And
does not really publicize that story, which to me, I would tell everybody.
Well, it's good we're doing it here for everyone to hear. So now it's on the record.
Sure. But yeah, that was kind of like the early scene. So when Scott moved back, eventually Ray was playing drums for us then, and he was just never really into the same music we were into.
Yeah.
I think he liked us all and thought we were like doing cool stuff, but it just wasn't his world really. He was actually one of the founding members of Me Without You.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like more his scene. He was more into like post-hardcore music and stuff like that. So eventually, it was at that point it was the five of us because Scott had joined in. So me, Rory, Scott, and Toby, and then Ray. And eventually, it was just kind of like this doesn't really make sense. Like Ray doesn't necessarily need to be in our band, but none of us really played the drums. So when Ray left, we started doing the thing where Toby and Scott would switch off between guitar and drums.
So that was why. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
There's
like,
definitely a thing with.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's like he'll play a little bit, but don't let people catch on too much that he's not really like drumming,
Yeah.
and switch him off real quick. But also, I mean, they know they were writing songs, so but that's oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was like personality stuff with Ray. I mean, Ray's a great. I love Ray so much, but I don't know if it was just because he wasn't as into what we were doing as we were.
Yeah.
But there was always. I feel like there was always a thing with like Scott's in Boston. He doesn't want to be there, or like Connecticut, depending on if he was at school or at home, and like he's gonna come back and we'll just be a band, and this is the band when it's the four of us. That was like my mental state with it. I don't know if Andrew,
Yeah.
if you back that up, we're just like,
I
yes,
mean,
that's the missing piece.
I think that was kind of Ray's thought on it from the beginning too, is that like
Yeah,
he was our drummer until we found somebody who actually made sense to be the fourth person in the band. And then when Scott moved back, it was like, well, we've kind of got our four people now. We just have to work around the fact that none of us are really drummers, which was a minor detail.
But it's just from my perspective too, it was also like so endearing because you get somebody that's not technically savvy in that way, and you just throw them in, and it's just this primal sound that comes through. It was like,
Yeah, for sure. I loved it.
yeah, I love that. I mean, the forget the technique and all that. I mean, there's a level I guess you need when you're starting to play, but I definitely saw that with both of their drumming styles. They had such a unique style that really just like boosted it up in this unique way for the band. At least when I first started seeing them.
yeah. I don't trust drummers that much. Like I feel like if someone is just a drummer and they're thinking about drum patterns, and
Yeah,
I'd rather if they were thinking about like the chords of a song or like dynamic shifts. And I feel like those dudes just had their brains set up a different way, and it translated to better rhythms and
yeah,
band energy.
Yeah, but this is kind of like foreshadowing the demise. It was kind of like building something on a shaky foundation. Like eventually Toby was going to want to play bass in a band, and Scott
mm,
was going to want to just play guitar and not have to play drums. So it's like eventually when the band ended, and that was I think certainly a part of the appeal of Dr. Dog was like I like Toby can just play bass and Scott can just play guitar, and they can find a drummer and they can find, people to like somebody who just plays keys. But at the time, the chaos was like a huge part of the fun.
yeah.
And Raccoon was a very weird band, and that's what I loved about it. A lot of, I there's a lot that I loved about it, but it was fun to me how like we were doing so much stuff that didn't really make sense, and it just
Yeah,
ended up being weird and fun.
it was like impractically democratic, that
Mm.
band. I feel like
Mm.
that was like a thing that was exciting about it.
Now here's a thing I'm curious: is where's the name from?
Toby came up with the name. It was shortly after we went from playing with Ray to not, and we hadn't really talked about changing the name, but we had gone to a show in Philadelphia, I think. We'd gone to a show somewhere, and we were driving back from it, and Toby had like in the basement in that house in Westchester, just like weird combinations of people would play music together. So Toby and Jeff Kelly, who later played with Unleash the Bastards, he was a Westchester guy who lives in Florida, and now he's a great dude.
Great guy.
Toby and Jeff Kelly, which is like the ultimate musical odd couple that I
That
could
is
think of from that scene.
that's
They were
really
just like
wild.
in the basement, in the basement making noise. And Toby had said their band was called Raccoon, and I think all of us were like, well, that's a really great name for a band. But we were driving home from this show in a car, and I remember in the car ride, Toby was like, I can't believe I wasted Raccoon on on my band with Jeff Kelly. And it was like, well, we don't have to be the paleontologists. That's not actually a good name for a band. And in the car, I was like, is our name Raccoon? And Toby was like, I think our name is Raccoon now.
That was it.
So, sorry, Jeff Kelly, we needed that. And your project with Toby was going nowhere, so I don't
That's
really apologize.
and I want to thank Jeff Kelly just personally because I took over his role in Unleash the Bastards.
Right.
He had
Yeah.
other things he was pursuing, so it was kind of this great thing. Everything worked
was
out in that way.
I
It
was
was like,
kind of more into the hardcore scene, which
yeah,
was a funny thing about that Westchester music world. Like, we were kind of weirdos and punks, but there were a lot of people, and a lot of the bands we played with were hardcore bands, and it was just stuff I had never gotten into or listened to. But those were just like the other music dudes around. So we're like, yeah, I hang out with this guy with the Judge sweatshirt, and I don't
well,
even know what that band is.
it's interesting just talking about Westchester for a second because I don't know how. I know this is going to, other people are going to be listening and that might not even know the area exactly, but it's this college town that's about an hour out of from Philly, and like super college. My dad went there to college. I had the same sociology professor that he did, which is kind of funny. My dad partied with back in the day, and it's just like really really college, right? Like built on a college town. I mean,
Yeah,
I know there's
it's not like a cool urban campus or anything. It's like the scene is the college.
yes, yes, and so with that comes a lot of you know, jocks, nerds,
Yeah.
misfits, and dreamers, and also at the time, also at the time there was Creep Records. I should just point out. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That was
Yeah.
a big deal.
That was really big, and one of my favorite bands, Plow United,
Hmm.
that I loved, and just had this like there was this whole scene that was happening there that we kind of dipped into once we started all these bands that we're talking about started playing more Raccoon, Unleash the Bastards, but that was this other thing that was happening, and it had a predominance of hardcore, I would say. There was like hardcore
Yeah,
in the
Plow
place.
was very pop punky and really
Hmm.
fun, and I was into Plow. But
Yeah,
I think a
Yeah,
lot
like
of
fun.
Creep Records roster was more hardcore.
yeah,
And then Newark, Delaware, which was our other like big music town, was Jade Tree Records, which is like more like melodic hardcore stuff.
yeah.
So both of these towns that were really central in what we were doing had these really successful indie labels, and they were just like not what we were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much more like I didn't understand any of that music, like the punk rock music at all. But yeah, but like pretty weird for some people. Both those places are like 45 minutes to an hour outside of Philadelphia,
Hmm.
and they seemed completely independent of what was happening in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
um, and kind of vital in their own way.
Yeah, you're right. I'm wondering then at that time who you were seeing. Like, were there local bands that you were going out to see? Like, as you started playing, kind of before you even started doing shows out in places. Like, were you, yeah? Is there anybody that you were into that was local or like going to see?
Yeah, in like the Newark scene, our friend in high school, Sarah Michaels, had a band called Marmalade,
Yeah, Marmalade.
which was the band after her band Brill, and both those bands were pretty great, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and then
liked what they were doing a lot.
the Pins,
The
which was
Pins.
Doug Weaver, who his brother John played in Civil War, reenactment guy.
Nice.
Um,
Yes, John,
but
good
yeah,
guy.
Doug Weaver and Brian Mackey and Steve Hollis, I loved the Pins so much. They were just like a super great kind of like political punk band, but they did covers of a bunch of 50s pop songs like
Ooh.
Bird Dog, and man, the Pins ruled.
Oh,
So like even in our high school there were some bands that I would like still go to bat for today. It's like these
yeah.
were really cool bands.
But those were like our first like contemporaries who were doing shit that seemed like kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's how you are in a band, and that's bands can be good, you know.
Who else was there any that like were kind of bigger bands?
Well, the two that I loved from the Newark, Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware scene were Zen Gorilla, which to
Really?
me are still like the greatest thing ever, which
The
is like MC5 ish, like
the freaking
blues, Rolling Stones type music.
and the singer's
So
the
good.
singer of the MC5 now from
Yeah,
Zen
he's
Grill,
in the
which is,
MC5
I
now.
mean,
They remind me of Rage Against the Machine. I feel like they have a
Yeah,
similar energy to Rage Against the Machine where it's like it's bluesier and more psychedelic, but like really bass and drums driven and just like really cool vocals. They're an incredible, especially live band. Like we would just get our minds blown by them 5 times a year.
they were. That was like the event is like a month away. Zenger will be playing, and then we would get so excited.
you got
Doug O'Donnell and
yeah.
I was going like spasms when we'd see that band, and I don't. We did that. We didn't lose control for other music. And then there was Caterpillar, which was like they did a split 12-inch with Zen Gorilla, and they were like kind of more indie rockish, like Pavement focused,
They're
but
definitely
really good, like intelligent music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved Caterpillar. They still like exist in some capacity in Philadelphia. Like every like 5 or 6 years, there'll be some Caterpillar show.
yeah.
Hmm.
And when we started playing in Newark, there was a band called Flux Capacitor that a guy named Jamie Wilson, who we became buddies with, was the songwriter for.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of overlap with that band Marmalade. A guitar player from Marmalade ended up playing in Flux Capacitor, and they were a very cool band. I liked them a lot. But that was kind of the Newark world. And then Westchester, Plow was the band I liked the most when we
And
started going to shows in Westchester.
and then George Thorogood and the Delaware Destroyers.
Yeah,
The Delaware Destroyers
Um,
are also from Delaware and
you know,
good.
but yeah, honestly, Plow was I just can't say enough good things about that. That was really got me. I think that was my most inspired for me, my most inspiring band at the time, like a local band. I was like, whoa, this is possible. I could do this. So that was kind of neat. That fueled the fire. And then they broke up like right as I got to Westchester. I was like, that's it.
Knew you were coming.
Yeah, that was
that's
it.
one
They're
thing
like,
I. Yeah, that's definitely something I've always admired about you, Bradford, is that you've found people who have like a creative energy that you get excited about, and you like not only gravitate to them or like are a fan of. Like I'm much more inclined to like be a fan of something,
mm,
but you wanted to be involved with people or like let people know that they meant something to you and get involved in it and get inspiration from it. And I think like from the first time I met you, you kind of had that.
mm,
You had that energy to you of just like getting mixed up in things you liked.
yeah.
It's great.
I gotta thank my folks for that one because I think that they got me to be real socialized, in this way and just whatever. I don't know if it's my Aquarian side or whatever that got to just really make these connections with folks and be bold to go out and just do that. I'm kind of happy to have that trait. But I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Yeah, it's yeah. I think it just yeah. At the time, I realized not everyone was doing that. It's like just jump into this mix of strangers that you don't know and just kind of just go for it. But
Yeah, I would just play music with the idea that like maybe the bassist from Zen Gorilla would walk through the room and then would recognize that I'm in a band. You know what I mean? Or like
yeah,
it was always like that abstract connection. I would never
yeah,
do anything about it, but
yeah.
the only way it could happen is if you actually get on the stage.
I gotta say though too with Zen Gorilla, I got to see them I think twice because you filled me in on who they were, and so it's like at one point I think I saw them at the Khyber, which was insane, amazing show. You never played with them, did you? You didn't open for them. Okay,
No.
so I don't know who it was, but it's just it was incredible. Like we were all there, and it was just this like.
Was it the one after right after September 11th? I feel like it was the first show after
Oh,
September 11th.
I
They
think
played the Khyber, and
yeah,
it
I
was
think
like the best feeling.
yeah, that was it. That must have been it. It was same. That would have totally fit in line with the timeline for seeing them. And the other time I saw them was it was after a Halloween party at John Weaver's. I went down with my friend Marin, and I think John, a couple people. We went down to Baltimore, and they started playing. They played a few songs, and then something happened, and it was this big blow up on stage, and that was it. The show was over. So that was almost as awesome too, because I got to see this real like fight happen.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was done. And I was like, this is great. They're not just like going through the motions, pretending like, oh, we got this show or whatever. It's like, no, this is a real deal, like blow up thing. It was very
Yeah, no, they seemed at odds at times, and that was kind of exciting. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a whole thing where like we had eventually we did well enough where I think at the East End Cafe in Newark, Delaware, which is where Zen Gorilla, like that was their like homecoming big time shows. We got enough where we're like, next time Zen Gorilla plays the East End, we get to open for them. And we're like, we just kept like that was like the carrot dangling. And then they broke up right before. Like it was like the next time they come, it's Raccoon and Zen Gorilla, and we're gonna like lose our shit. And yeah, it didn't happen.
So
we were so bad at self-promotion and like figuring out how to play shows, and we would just get mad and like resent bands that were playing. But it's like really the opposite of what Rory is saying you were able to do, which is like just like put yourself out there and say like, hey, I really like your stuff, and then you end up like playing with these people that you love, and we were just like these miscreants who couldn't get out of our own way. But we the East End just had an open band night. So like you go and play as a band, and that like our first 3 or 4 shows in a venue, we would play like in basements of just friends, like not even basement shows, just like tell our friend like, you're gonna have us play in your basement. And
private show.
At my parents' house, I started a music festival called Jeep Fest, which was basically just a chance for all of the bands that my friends were in to play. And then when I had a band, it's like, well, yeah, we're definitely playing Jeep Fest, like the booker. So that was like the only time we were playing, and I think we all felt like we're pretty good. Like, why doesn't somebody book us? Not thinking like, how would anyone know we exist?
Just being angry that people were automatically like, you guys are a band.
Yeah,
that crappy band is
probably pretty good.
Why are we playing a show? And then when we moved to Philly, I just made a 2-song demo tape, and I gave it to like the 3 venues that we thought would be fun to play, and all 3 of them offered us a show within like 2 days. I was like, man, that's all it took. We should have done this a long time ago. Bunch of dummies.
Well, so I want to backtrack from there, because I was curious about this. How did you get your first show? Like, so you did I remember those open band nights too. Now that you say it, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, from that.
It was like 3 open band nights before we did anything, though. It was
like an actual show, like a book show.
An actual show. We did. So the funny thing with us is that we did an open band night, and the guy Mike Chaney, who had his record label Sound Extreme Records, was there, and we got done. Like open band, you play 3 or 4 songs. Like you use their drum kit and their like bass rig. And then afterwards he was like, I'm gonna put out a record by you guys. And it seemed like the ultimate like dipshit band thing. Just like, we play, yeah, well, of course you're gonna put out a record by us. We just played a song called Broadway and Seaward Bound or whatever. Like, we're great. We played Prison Break for you or whatever. Like these early songs that are just like not quite songs, but they're great. Yeah, we were like, this, yeah, you owe us. We put in our time already.
You already did, yeah.
I think we got an actual show at the East End. We played that open band a few times, and like the guy who booked there was like, "You guys, people come to see you at this open band night. You can play on you can open on an actual show."
Yeah,
like amazing, we made it. And then we started playing also at Rex's in Westchester and Fenario, the coffee shop in Westchester. And
Yeah.
those were like our early things. We started to like know other bands and people who were putting on shows. So we played like a few VFW shows, and the YWCA in Westchester put shows on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we we managed to get a little bit of momentum going in Newark and Westchester. The first show we ever played in Philly, I think you were involved in. It's that show at the Pontiac Grill. Did you
Yeah.
play that or set that up? There's something because I think Unleash the Bastards and Raccoon both played
Yeah. Yeah,
at
I remember playing.
that was
Yeah,
our
that
first
was
show in Philadelphia.
Astros played that. That's great.
yeah. I actually have like a live
Long time.
CD of that. That's real, just from the board, and
That's
it's
cool.
not mixed well, so it's just all like
Yeah, they
janky. You have
never
like this one guitar super loud, and then everything's quiet. But
That
okay.
was the show where I put my amp on stage, and the sound guy, who's really this like old guy with a ponytail, came up. He was like, "Let me ask you a question. Do you want to hear your guitar tonight, or do you want to hear it next week?" And I was like, "I'd like to hear it tonight." He's like, "Then you're going to move it, or you're going to hear it next week too. It's going to be too loud for you tonight."
I
Just like
thought he
the weirdest, most confrontation. I was like, I just had said it on the stage.
Well,
thought he
come on.
said, "Do you want to hear it with your ears or your knees?"
With your ears or your knees.
Because it was pointed at your legs.
That's what it was.
It was like this weird Zen cone of like, I don't like, are we trying to stretch our minds here? Or are you asking me a question that has anything to do with the show we're about to play?
Yeah, you like don't prepare for that sort of thing when you're like, I'm going to play a show. You like these abstract questions from this guy who just wants to listen to King Crimson and
Oh,
not have to deal with your fucking band.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like it's like Welcome to Philly, kid.
Yeah,
This is
the big time.
the big time. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
real
it.
with your knees or with your ears.
Oh
Oh,
God.
God.
What and at this point, like you guys, what had you recorded then? At this point, was there recordings going on?
Well, like Rory said, there's this guy, Mike Cheney, who lived in Delaware and had this little record label in Delaware that had put out a flux capacitor record, which was like the thing that we knew. And we were like, they're cool and they're more successful than us. So when he wanted to put out something of ours, we were like, great, makes total sense. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
And this is Sonic Stream Records.
Yeah, Sonic Stream. So we had done a like 4-song demo just in like a guy's basement studio in Downingtown. I don't remember his name. He was a really nice guy.
Dave something?
Maybe.
Is that maybe?
I forget his name too.
You recorded with him too, Bradford, right?
We did the Bastards album there, and gosh, what is his name? I'm sure it's
So
on
we
one
had those
record.
4 songs, but then we like recorded 6 more with Nick Rotundo, who is passed away a few years ago. He was like a Newark hardcore
He did?
drummer. Yeah, he died a few years ago. It was really sad.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he was a super nice guy and recorded a bunch of cool bands at his studios called Clay Creek Studio in Newark, Delaware.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had recorded 6 more with Nick, and we just kind of smashed the 4 we did in the guy's basement with the 6 we did with Nick, and that was our debut album on Sonic Stream Records. And
Is this from
Yeah.
yeah? Can we do a little? Can we do a
Yeah,
little?
let's just go with it.
so
Okay.
Delirious.
We're just gonna listen to a little like Delirious right now, and this one's funny because it's in iTunes on the Grace Notes. It somehow comes up as delicious.
This ain't gonna take long. I'm your person, backseat driver, motorcade ain't no parade. Secret Service call, your hair from behind the courthouse. We'll
good. That was at Nick's.
This was at the first place, the guy's basement we recorded in.
First guy's place. Okay.
Yeah, which has got a really good sound, I think. It's kind of like blown out in a cool way.
Very low fi,
And I'm noticing now that like Scott just sounds like Bob Dylan on that Rolling Thunder Review tour. If you saw that documentary,
I love that. We saw
kind of
that.
has that vibe, right?
Yeah, it totally
like this wild
does.
energy. Yeah.
Just kind of wild and rolling along, you know, just this falling. Like kind of everything's just like, it's real loose, you know, everything's just kind of hitting and yeah.
And that's got Hunter is a Dog is in it, which is like the thing that comes up a few times.
Yeah, we had a dog named Hunter at our house.
Yeah, who is Hunter?
Hunter was our dog. Hunter is a dog. That is, we only told the truth in our lyrics. That was the policy. So Hunter is a dog. He was a great dog. He was Toby. We had decided we were going to have a dog in our house in Westchester, and Toby went to the pound and picked out Hunter. And his description at the pound was, his name is Hunter. He's a gentleman on the leash. Which wasn't really that true. He was all right. I wouldn't call him a gentleman, but he was a gentleman. Otherwise, he was one of my favorite dogs ever. He's a sweet guy.
Kind of like shaped like a fox. He was a cool dog.
He was
that
a great
song
dog.
has
Sweet dog.
The first line of that song is 3 points to the crow, which was Andrew's mom had a Jeep. I guess that was the Jeep that led to Jeep Fest. But his little sister Alexandra, who is now 29 years old, she had a piece of paper there that had like names of birds or like objects you would see on the road. So it was crow, and there were 3 slashes underneath the crow. Like she had seen 3 crows on her drive. It was kind of very like southeastern Pennsylvania. Like you're gonna see some crows. You probably won't see stoplights, but you'll see crows or roadkill.
Oh, I love it.
3 points to the crow is winning.
Yeah, the crow is ahead.
I mean, this is also really cool with like a lot of the Raccoon lyrics, just that I surmise were very smart and abstract, right?
Yeah, I think later on, Scott and Toby have obviously written hundreds of songs by now, and I think later on they got a little more direct in some of their lyrics. But Scott's always done a lot of wordplay, and Toby's lyrics in Raccoon I always really loved. They are weird and abstract, but they have this kind of twisted logic poetry to them that's really cool. And it's just all feels like it's from this murky, confused dream world. But
yeah, they're bleak young man interpretations. A bleak young man who has the mind and body of a really old man.
Yeah.
Like that Bukowski thing is kind of like came through.
Well, there you have it. That's part 1. Bag it and tag it. You got it now sitting in your gullet. Don't hesitate. Jump to the second episode. That is part 2 of this whole story. I want you to do it now while it's still fresh in your head, in your heart, in your belly. You're going to get a good conclusion of this story in part 2. I'll see you next time.
May all your wishes come true.